She insulted her husband at her promotion party, not knowing he was a mafia boss. The night Lily had dreamed about for years finally arrived. The grand hotel hall shone under warm golden lights, and soft music filled the air like a gentle promise of success. Long tables were covered with white cloth, crystal glasses, and plates of carefully arranged food. People dressed in elegant suits and dresses moved around, laughing, congratulating, and raising their glasses. This night was all about Lily. Lily stood near the stage, her heart beating fast with excitement. She wore a dark blue dress that made her feel confident and powerful. Every step she had taken in her career had led her here. Years of late nights, missed family dinners, and endless pressure had finally paid off. Tonight, she was officially promoted to regional manager, one of the youngest in the company's history. Her colleagues admired her, some with genuine respect, others with quiet jealousy. Grace, her closest friend at work, was the loudest voice in the room. She clapped proudly and kept telling everyone, "Lily deserves this more than anyone." Ava stood nearby, smiling politely, holding her phone ready to record the moment. Cameras flashed as Lily stepped onto the stage. The applause grew louder, and Lily felt a rush of pride rise inside her chest. She took the microphone and looked across the room. Faces stared back at her, managers, co-workers, clients, and friends. She smiled, lifted her glass, and began to speak. She thanked her company, her mentors, and her team. Her words were confident and smooth, practiced but heartfelt. Each sentence brought more applause. Near the back of the hall, Daniel stood quietly. He leaned slightly against the wall, holding a glass of water instead of wine. He wore a simple black suit, clean and well-fitted, but nothing expensive or eye-catching. His face was calm, almost unreadable. While others laughed loudly and talked about deals and promotions, Daniel remained silent, observing everything with careful eyes. Most people did not pay attention to him. To Lily's co-workers, Daniel was just her quiet husband. Lily had always described him as a man who ran a small logistics business, someone who preferred staying out of the spotlight. He rarely attended her work events, and when he did, he stayed in the background. Tonight was no different. As Lily continued her speech, she suddenly remembered Daniel standing there. A playful smile appeared on her face. She felt bold, untouchable, lifted by the praise surrounding her. Without thinking deeply, she turned slightly and gestured toward him. "And of course," she said with a light laugh, "I should thank my husband." A few people turned to look at Daniel. He lifted his head slightly, surprised but calm. "Even though he never really understood my ambition," Lily continued, her voice cheerful, "and always stayed in the shadows, at least he learned how to stand behind a successful woman." For a second, the room was quiet. Then laughter spread across the hall. Some laughed awkwardly, others loudly. Grace laughed too, thinking it was just a joke. Ava smiled, though her eyes showed a hint of discomfort. Daniel smiled politely. His lips curved gently, but something changed in his eyes. A shadow passed through them, quick and silent. It was not anger. It was something deeper, disappointment mixed with exhaustion. But no one noticed. Lily did not notice. She was too busy enjoying the applause that followed. She raised her glass again, the laughter still echoing in her ears. In that moment, Lily felt powerful. She felt admired and respected. She believed she had earned her place above everyone else, including the man who stood quietly behind her. Daniel lowered his eyes and took a slow breath. In another world, his name was spoken with fear. In another life, men bowed their heads when he entered a room. Decisions he made could change lives, destroy enemies, or save entire neighborhoods. He carried the weight of power and violence silently, carefully, and alone. But here, in this bright hall filled with music and celebration, he was just Lily's husband, the man she had publicly reduced to a shadow. As the party continued, people came to congratulate Lily. They shook her hand, hugged her, and praised her intelligence and ambition. Daniel stayed where he was, watching her from a distance. When their eyes met briefly, Lily smiled at him without thinking, as if everything was perfectly fine. Later, as the music grew louder and the wine flowed freely, Daniel quietly left the hall. No one stopped him. No one noticed him go. Outside, the cool night air hit his face. He stood still for a moment, looking up at the dark sky. The insult did not make him angry. It made him realize something painful. Lily no longer respected the man he had chosen to be for her. The mask he wore to protect their life together had slowly erased him in her eyes. Inside the hall, Lily continued to shine, unaware that the words she spoke so easily had cracked something fragile and important. That night, while Lily celebrated her success, the distance between her and her husband quietly grew wider. After the promotion night, life returned to its usual rhythm, but something invisible had changed between Lily and Daniel. Their house was the same, quiet and clean, filled with soft lights and carefully chosen furniture, yet the silence now felt heavier. Lily woke up early every morning, dressed sharply, and left for work with purpose in her steps. Daniel often stayed behind, moving calmly through the house, preparing breakfast or checking his phone quietly. They spoke, but their words were short and practical, lacking warmth. When Lily and Daniel first married, things were very different. Lily was still struggling to prove herself at work, and Daniel was her strongest support. He listened to her complaints, encouraged her during failures, and reminded her of her worth when she doubted herself. He never competed with her ambition. Instead, he stood beside her, offering stability and patience. Lily admired his calm nature back then. She used to say his silence made her feel safe. As years passed, Lily's career grew rapidly. Promotions came, responsibilities increased, and her world became filled with meetings, deadlines, and powerful people. Daniel's life, at least the part Lily could see, remained unchanged. He traveled often for business, sometimes leaving without much explanation and returning just as quietly. He never talked about his work in detail, and Lily never pushed too hard to ask. At first, this mystery seemed interesting. Later, it became something she ignored. Lily began to feel that she was moving forward while Daniel stayed still. She started measuring success by titles, money, and public recognition. Daniel did not fit into that image. When colleagues asked about him, Lily described him as simple and private, someone who preferred a quiet life. She did not realize that each time she said this, she slowly placed herself above him in her own mind. Grace noticed the change long before Lily did. During lunch breaks, Grace would sometimes ask gently, "Are you and Daniel okay?" Lily always replied confidently that everything was fine. Once, Grace hesitated and said, "You really don't know much about his work, do you?" Lily laughed and brushed it off, saying not everyone wanted power or attention. She believed love did not require curiosity anymore. At home, Daniel noticed everything. He noticed how Lily no longer shared her fears, only her achievements. He noticed how she spoke to him like someone who would always be there, no matter how little effort she gave. Yet, he never complained. He had faced far worse in his other life. Compared to threats, betrayals, and violence, silence felt manageable. In his hidden world, Daniel was known as a mafia boss whose name commanded respect and fear. He controlled powerful networks, made strategic decisions, and protected people who depended on him. He carried secrets that could destroy lives if revealed. But when he came home, he chose to leave that world behind. He washed his hands, changed his clothes, and became only a husband. That was the life he wanted with Lily. The promotion night forced him to face a painful truth. Lily no longer saw him as her partner. She saw him as someone standing behind her success, not beside it. The laughter of the crowd replayed in his mind, not because it hurt his pride, but because it showed how far apart they had grown. Lily, on the other hand, felt proud and unstoppable. She believed she had finally proven her worth to the world. She did not notice Daniel's emotional distance because she was too focused on her own momentum. She assumed marriage could survive on habit alone. She did not understand that respect, once lost, quietly weakens love. Their marriage remained calm on the surface, but underneath, it was fragile. Neither of them spoke about the night. Neither of them apologized. The silence between them deepened, preparing the ground for a truth that could no longer stay hidden. Only a few days after the promotion party, Lily started noticing things that did not make sense. Early one morning, as she looked out the window while drinking her coffee, she saw a black luxury car parked across the street. The windows were dark, and the engine was running. She assumed it belonged to a neighbor or a visitor and ignored it. The next day, another car appeared, this time closer to their house. By the end of the week, Lily noticed men standing outside occasionally. They wore dark suits and spoke quietly into their phones. They did not look like neighbors. Their presence made her uncomfortable, but Daniel acted completely normal. When Lily finally asked him about it, he calmly replied that he had upgraded their security because of work concerns. His tone was steady, and his explanation sounded reasonable. Lily chose to believe him. At work, however, strange rumors began spreading. Lily noticed people whispering when she walked into rooms. Some coworkers avoided eye contact. Others stared at her with curiosity mixed with fear. Ava approached her one morning, her face pale and her hands shaking slightly. She pulled Lily aside and spoke in a low voice, asking, "Do you know who your husband really is?" Lily laughed nervously, assuming it was some kind of joke. Before she could answer, Grace joined them. Grace's expression was serious, not playful. She explained that people were talking about a powerful mafia boss named Daniel Romano. She described his influence, his reputation, and his appearance. Every detail matched Lily's husband. Lily felt her chest tighten. She tried to dismiss it, saying names could be similar and rumors exaggerated. But doubt had already entered her mind. That evening, instead of going straight home, Lily decided to follow Daniel discreetly. Her heart raced as she watched him drive through unfamiliar streets. He stopped in front of a heavily guarded building. Men stepped aside as he exited the car. Some lowered their heads. One of them clearly called him boss. Lily's legs felt weak. She stayed hidden, watching as Daniel walked inside with confidence she had never seen before. In that moment, the quiet man she thought she knew disappeared. The truth stood in front of her, undeniable and terrifying. The man she insulted was not weak. He was powerful beyond her imagination. As she returned home later that night, Lily felt fear, shame, and confusion mixing inside her. Her success suddenly felt small compared to the secret life Daniel had carried alone. She realized that her words at the promotion party were not harmless jokes. They were signs of ignorance and disrespect. That night, Lily understood that her world was about to change forever. The house felt unusually quiet that night. Lily sat on the couch, her hands tightly folded, her heart beating loudly in her chest. Every sound felt heavier than usual, the ticking clock, the faint hum of electricity, the soft wind outside the window. She had returned home before Daniel, and the waiting felt unbearable. Her mind replayed everything she had seen that evening, the guarded building, the men in black suits, the way they bowed their heads, and the word that still echoed painfully in her ears, boss. When the front door finally opened, Daniel stepped inside calmly, just as he always did. He removed his jacket, placed his keys on the table, and looked at Lily. One glance at her face told him that the time for silence was over. He did not ask what was wrong. He simply sat down across from her, his expression steady but serious. Lily stood up slowly, her legs trembling. Her voice shook as she spoke. She asked him who he really was and why everyone seemed afraid of him. For the first time in years, Daniel did not avoid the question. He closed his eyes briefly, took a deep breath, and then began to speak. His voice was calm, but every word carried weight. He told her everything. He spoke about the world he came from, a world filled with danger, loyalty, and violence. He explained how power was not something he wanted but something he had inherited and grown into. He described the responsibility of protecting people who depended on him and the enemies that never stopped watching. He admitted that he lived with constant risk, and that secrecy was the only way to keep her safe. Lily listened in silence, tears streaming down her face. Every sentence made her feel smaller, not because Daniel was powerful, but because she had never tried to understand him. She remembered all the times she had dismissed his quiet nature, all the jokes she had made about him staying in the shadows, and the cruel words she had spoken in front of everyone she respected. When Daniel finished, the room fell silent again. Lily fell to her knees, overwhelmed by guilt. She apologized repeatedly, her voice breaking as she admitted how blinded she had been by success. She told him how she humiliated him without knowing his truth, and how deeply ashamed she felt. Daniel helped her up gently. He told her that the pain was not the public insult itself, but the realization that she no longer respected him as her equal. He explained that love could survive hardship, fear, and even secrets, but it could not survive without respect. His words were firm but not cruel. They were honest. That night, Lily understood that power without humility destroys relationships. She realized that she had mistaken silence for weakness and ambition for worth. The confrontation did not end in anger or shouting. It ended in painful clarity, and for the first time in years, honesty stood between them instead of silence. The weeks that followed were filled with reflection and change. Lily returned to work, but everything felt different. The applause no longer satisfied her. Meetings felt empty, and praise sounded distant. She began questioning why she had chased success so fiercely and what she had lost along the way. Slowly, she realized that her ambition had grown without balance, feeding her pride but starving her empathy. After long conversations with Daniel and herself, Lily made a decision that surprised everyone. She resigned from her position. It was not because Daniel asked her to or forced her to choose. It was because she wanted to rediscover who she was beyond titles, promotions, and public recognition. She wanted to rebuild herself with humility and purpose. Lily began working quietly with charities and community programs, helping families who struggled silently, just as Daniel had protected people without recognition. She used her skills to organize, plan, and lead, but this time without applause. Daniel supported her, offering protection from the shadows but never interfering. Their partnership slowly rebuilt itself on honesty and mutual respect. Daniel also changed. He stopped hiding behind silence and began sharing more about his world, his fears, and his burdens. For the first time, Lily saw the weight he carried every day. She learned that real strength was not dominance or control, but responsibility and restraint. Daniel was still a mafia boss, still feared in his world, but at home, he allowed himself to be vulnerable. One evening, they hosted a small dinner with close friends, including Grace and Ava. There were no cameras, no speeches, and no applause. Just quiet laughter and honest conversation. At the table, Lily raised her glass and looked at Daniel with sincere respect in her eyes. She admitted her past mistakes openly and spoke about the lesson she had learned. She said that she once believed power meant standing above others, but now she understood that real power meant standing beside the people who matter most. Grace smiled proudly, and Ava nodded in agreement, moved by Lily's growth. Daniel smiled softly, not as a feared boss, but as a husband who had been seen and understood at last. In that moment, Lily realized that success without respect is empty, and ambition without love is lonely. She had climbed high, but she had learned that the greatest strength comes from humility, understanding, and shared respect. And from that day on, Lily no longer measured her worth by applause, but by the peace she built beside the man she once misunderstood.